All right. Welcome back to another episode of the SFL show. Sports Family Life is what we like to talk about on here. Great weekend of sports. So we get an opportunity to talk about that. We're going to be kind of sports heavy today. We're not going to talk politics or Diddy arrests or anything like that. We're gonna stick with the NFL and we'll talk a little bit of college because I want to talk a little NIL because there's some things that are circulating around college sports with NIL and how that works, and we'll talk about that. And we'll talk about a trip that we took to Dallas this weekend and just how important it is to get away and kind of ease your mind a little bit. We all have things that are going on in life, and we'll talk about that trip to Dallas and get some shout outs for some of the things that we experienced there. So let's go ahead. Let's jump right in. I think let's go ahead and start with our college football because when we go to the NFL, I want to bring in that last part with us going to Dallas. So college football, not a ton of premier games this weekend when it came to what was going on in college. Of course, no, probably the main game I was interested in was the Michigan USC game. Of course, that game was interesting for me. Obviously, being a fan of Michigan. I'm always going to be keeping my eyes on what Miami does. Miami, they were taking on South Florida. That ended up being close at the beginning, but by the time that game was over, by the time the time ran out, that game was over. But not a ton of premier games. I think the premier game, the game that everyone was probably looking forward to for the weekend, was probably that Tennessee Oklahoma game. And ended up being not the best of games. But we'll talk a little bit about that huge game coming up this weekend. We'll jump into that a little bit, and then we'll jump into the NFL side. So, of course, let's go ahead and go with the premier game of the week, the Oklahoma Tennessee game. I did not see a lot of it. It did not look interesting or entertaining to me, but the little bit I did see, Tennessee looks for real, and one of the things that I am trying to learn more about is the transfer portal. I have a son that plays college football, and it's very possible that this may be a life that we live, as far as figuring out where he's going to go, what his opportunities are, things like that. Of course, when it comes to the transfer portal, there's NIL attached to it as well. So, but Tennessee looks like they have made some really good moves in the transfer portal, and they have a really good nucleus of players around those young recruits that they have coming in. We see the same thing in Miami, with their backfield with Cam Ward and Damian Martinez, things like that. But the Oklahoma Tennessee game, although not fairly interesting, in my opinion. Of course, I'm not a fan of either team. It does show that you can turn a program around if you get the right players in place. And that's going to be interesting when it comes to college football. And it's going to really set those that can really coach and are just coaching with the talent they have. It's going to really set those coaches apart. My godbrother was saying before that one thing that the transfer portal does do is it makes you have to coach because now where we used to see Ohio State and Alabama, and maybe Clemson, back then they would have all the talent. They would be 1, 2, 3, and they would have all the talent. Well, now with the transfer portal, NIL, things like that, you're going to see some of these top tier players going to other schools that aren't Alabama or Auburn or USC or whatever the case may be. And it's going to really show, okay, can I really coach these kids and develop these kids and get them to a place where they can be successful? know, as a team without having the top talent. And I think that's one of the things that we're going to see. Now, the NIL in whole just seems like a headache. Like I said, we'll talk about that a little later on. That just seems like a headache. But I think that this is going to really show what teams or what coaches can do. Um, Tennessee, I think that they have a dynamic offense. And I think their defense is pretty solid as well. I think that is the one team in the SEC that people aren't talking about a lot. You're hearing a lot about Texas. You're hearing a lot about Georgia. You're hearing a lot about Ole Miss, believe it or not. And you're also hearing a lot about Alabama, obviously. And you understand why. But I think Tennessee is just as good as those teams. I mean, they showed a little bit of that going up against Oklahoma, who is young on offense, but they always have a really stout defense. And they were able to move the ball and put points up on that defense, and show how stout their defense was, in that victory as well. So that was probably the premier game of the weekend. I think they were kind of letting everything settle in, because this weekend coming up, you get the Alabama Georgia game, which is going to be huge. I think it's a night game. So I think they were just kind of setting the stage for next weekend. The game that I was more interested in was the USC Michigan game. Obviously, being a Michigan fan, I'm always going to want to know what's going on with Michigan. And the one thing that I can say about that particular game is Michigan looks young. They look young on offense, obviously having to restructure that entire offense. And their defense looks, I don't want to say bare, no, because they're pretty stout, but after their starters, they look young there. They look young in the secondary, which is understandable. Rob Moore being out for the year. You have Center Stall, he goes to the NFL. You had Sapp transfer to Alabama. And then, of course, you have Will Johnson, who is, of course, a phenomenal player. And then there's a bunch of young guys back there. Makari Praise is back there as well. He was there last year. But they just look young. After that starting defensive line goes out, you could just see their youth, because I think the defensive line that front, five, is probably where their strength is. And you saw that in this game against USC. When USC started to speed up the tempo and you started to see tiresome, you started to see them get tired, they were able to move the ball a little bit more, things like that. Michigan actually played pretty well in the first half. They were able to run the ball. They were able to pick up chunk yardage, things like that. You can tell with Alex Orji coming in as the starter for the first time, they did not want to put too much on him. And they didn't, because I think they only had 32 yards passing for the game. But they were able to move the ball. They were able to run the ball, things like that. But what happens is when the offense is not getting first downs and they're not able to move the ball the way that they can or need to, um, the defense is out there more, and you start to see them tire and tire and tire and tire. And by the fourth quarter, USC were able to come back and make it a game. And Michigan actually ended up having to drive the ball down the field on kind of like a 2-minute drill, which was the craziest 2-minute drill I've ever seen, because there were no passes in it. They were all runs. So, but they were able to pull it out. They were able to pull it out off a really gritty running game, and win it 37-34. It was interesting because a lot of people don't like those type games. Those type games, I guess they're not pleasing statistically, to the eyes. When you have so many running, you look at a game and you see 32 passing yards. It's probably not a game that you really feel like you want to watch. But that game was 24-27. I'm sorry I said 34, but that game was 24-27, which is some pretty good points. I mean, it's not a 14-10 game. It's 27-24. So there were points being scored in that game. And there were also big plays in that game. They were big plays. Even on the Michigan side, they were big 60 yards, 50 yards, 45-yard plays. They just were running plays. And that still can carry some excitement. Great game for them. I think as they continue to go, they'll learn, they'll get better, they'll get older. I don't know what the outcome of the season is going to be, but I'm very interested in how they progress throughout the year. These young players getting a little bit more experience. It's going to be interesting to see what they do at the quarterback position. Right now, they're dealing with Alex Orji. Of course, they started the season with the quarterback. I honestly thought they were going to put him in to navigate that last drive. I did. I thought that, okay, maybe this is when they need to go back, to Davis Warren. I think his name is Davis Warren. They need to go back to Davis Warren, just so they can have some more of a passing attack, because Davis Warren is probably a better passer than Alex Orji is right now. But they stuck with him. They stuck with Alex Orji, and they were able to get that last drive off a big run by Khalil Mullings and pull that game out. So I don't know if anything else happened interesting in college last week. As I just peruse a scroll through, I'm trying to see if there's anything else that just kind of stuck out. Georgia was on the bye, Alabama was on the bye. Of course, them getting ready for each other. They have those bye weeks. But there was not really another game that was interesting in regards to college football. But like I said, this upcoming week, I'm sure we're going to have a lot to talk about, mainly that Alabama Georgia game. And I'll say this right now, based off what I've seen, I don't think it's going to be close. I think Alabama is going to put a good beating on them. I don't think it's going to be close. We'll see. We'll see if this take if it's no if it's a good take no after next week, but I think Alabama's gonna put a pretty good beating on them. So we'll see what happens next week, and we'll go from there. So, but all right, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about NIL. Now, I want to bring that up because there was a story that came out with the UNLV quarterback who is going to redshirt this year. He just played a third year. UNLV, they're 3-0. Quarterback has been playing pretty good, but at the same time, he's not getting paid what he was promised, or what he deems, him and his family deemed that what he was promised. Therefore, he's going to redshirt, get back into the transfer portal, and go to another school next year. And I was like, wow, can he do that? I mean, that was honestly my thought. Can he do that? Can he just say I'm not playing, and go back into the portal and go somewhere else? And I guess he can. I had to look it up. And what it says is a player can stop playing at college at any point in time, but they have a certain time when they can enter the transfer portal. And I didn't know that. That's interesting, where a player could just say, you know what, I don't want to play here anymore. And they'll just have to sit out till the transfer portal opens up, and then they can enter the transfer portal and see what their options are. And that is wild to me, when it comes to college football. Now, of course, for the longest, we looked at college football as student athletes. They were students first, and then they were athletes second. But it seems like that has completely changed, because players are really saying, either you pay me this amount of money or I will go somewhere else. And I'm like, whoa, they got to do something about this. And I think one of the reasons that they're able to do this is because there are no rules. NIL honestly has no rules right now. Matter of fact, if you were to ask me, how does the NIL work? The only thing that I can tell you that it stands for name, image, and likeness, and players are able to get paid for playing college football now. That is the extent of the rules I know. And this is something that I'm going to need to learn, because like I say, I have a son who is playing college sports right now. So I will need to learn this. But it seems like what's happening, and I don't know is schools are saying, okay, if you come here, we will give you this amount of money. And now what students are doing, what the athletes are doing is if they don't get that amount of money, I guess in a certain amount of time, they're saying, okay, I'm not going to play here anymore and I'll go somewhere else because you've kind of reneged on that deal. And that is an interesting concept when it comes to college football because, of course, we know college football did not used to be like that. And now it makes sense why Nick Saban is like, I want no part of this. I'm out. Because that is wild that players are kind of dictating who they play for by the money that they're getting. And I'm not saying that this quarterback for UNLV is the first individual to do it, but this is probably the first case that I've seen where there was kind of like, nope, not playing for it, where the guy is actually taking snaps. I know there was been some situations where somebody might have agreed to go to a school and some things probably didn't happen, so they changed their mind and they said, you know what, I'll just go over here. But I've never seen it where they've actually taken snaps, where they've actually contribute to the team winning. It's kind of like a holdout to a degree. Was like, nope, either you pay me or I'm not playing. And I think one of the reasons that players can do that is because, like I said, there are no rules. There's absolutely no rules as to how NIL works. No one can say, okay, this is the amount of money that you can give. This is the amount that the school can give per team or whatever the case may be. Where does the money come from? I think it just varies. You see, teams like Tennessee where they're just, attaching it to the tickets, almost like gratuity. Like, all right, well, you know what? You go to this restaurant, we're gonna go ahead and we're just gonna add the gratuity to it. That's what they're kind of doing, when it comes to how they're doing it. And it's kind of like it's just the wild wild west when it comes to money. And if they keep it this way, I don't know how this is going to end up. I will be honest with you. That's going to be wild. So we're going to have to keep an eye on these NIL cases, these NIL stories, because there's some crazy things going on right now. And I think that college football is going to have to establish some rules as to who pays, how they pay, contracts, things like that. I've always been an advocate of kids getting played to play football because I feel like college football is used as the NFL's minor league. That's how I feel. That they groom these kids. I think the NCAA and the NFL, they're kind of in cahoots with each other and they groom them to go to the next level. So therefore, if that's the case, then it should be treated like a minor leagues. Now, of course, the smart thing would be to do it like baseball, or some of these other sports where you have a minor league, and then you can go to college if you choose to as well. But if you choose to go to minor league, then that's what you do. You go to the minor league, and you get paid a stipend, whatever the case may be. I understand why football won't do that. They say, you know what? Why do that? We'll just use college football. But now, we're getting to the point where it's like, okay, well, how much are you going to pay, for us to come play college football and make you all a bunch of money? And it's just so interesting, so much. I don't know what the fix is. It's going to take some really smart people to come together, put their heads together, put their minds together, and see what is the best way for this to work, because kids just leaving game 3, game 4 into the season so they can save that red shirt and get back into the transfer portal to make more money. That's bonkers. That's crazy right there. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. I wish that young man the best of luck. Now, I know he's probably doing what's best for him and his family. I understand it to a degree. Yes, a part of me do feel like there has to be some loyalty there, but it's not my situation, my circumstances. So no, who am I to say anything? But figure it out. College football, you all are gonna have to figure this out. Maybe next week I'll think about it a little bit more. Maybe I'll come up with a plan that I can propose, and bring to their attention. But we'll see. We'll see how that goes, and we'll see what college football holds, and how how they decide to do this, because right now it's just a wild wild west. So all right, so let's talk NFL. NFL. was a very interesting week last week. You had the Cincinnati Bengals going up against the Washington Commanders on Monday night with the Buffalo Bills in Jacksonville. Those were the Monday night games. And I'm just going in reverse. The Sunday night game. Who was in that Sunday night game? I remember. Let me look that up real fast. The Sunday night game was between. Let's see here. Mm, you had the Chiefs and the Falcons, and of course the Thursday night game was the Jets and the Patriots. So neither of those games were surprising. I think all of us kind of felt like the winners would win, except for that Cincinnati Washington game. I said last week. And I had to, I'm not going to make a correction here because what I said probably was a little bit extreme. But I said with Cincinnati, Joe Burrow has not been playing well in the last 10 games, and I was basing that on the wins losses. I'll be honest, I was basing that on win losses, and the reason I'm kind of tracking that is because in this game against Washington, it wasn't Joe Burrow's fault that they lost that game. It was not his fault. Joe Burrow actually had a really good game. But Cincinnati just doesn't seem to be able to stop anybody. I don't know what's going on. It's almost as if they have to score every possession if they want to have a chance to win. In the game against Washington, they didn't punt once. They did not punt the ball once. No turnovers, no punts. And I think Jaden Daniels completed like 90% of his passes. That's crazy. So I'm not saying no, and I don't want to completely let Joe Burrow off the hook, but it's not his fault that they're losing games. But we know quarterbacks gets the blame and the reward for wins and losses. And the fact of the matter for Cincinnati, they have not been winning lately. So I don't know what they're gonna do. I don't know how they're gonna figure that out. They start the season 0-3. I don't think anyone was looking for that or felt like that would be the case. I know for me, I thought Cincinnati would have a really good chance at going to the Super Bowl simply because of the way that they play Kansas City. They play Kansas City really tough, and that is one of the few teams that has gotten through Kansas City in the playoffs. So that was my honestly one of my Super Bowl picks. So we'll see how that goes. Now they got Carolina coming in this week. That should be a win, I guess. But we saw what Andy Dalton did last week against the Raiders, which was no, I don't know. I'm sorry, this weekend against the Raiders. And that was like, okay, maybe there is something there with the whole Bryce Young thing. So hopefully, we'll see what happens with Cincinnati. We'll see if they are able to get back in the win column. But if they don't change something fast, you're starting to hear people say maybe they start moving pieces. Maybe you start seeing trade offers for T. Higgins, them making them available. I can't imagine them trading Jamar Chase. I think if they had to trade one of them, it would be T. Higgins. But we'll see. If they start the season 1-4 or 1-5, you may see them start to move some pieces around. So yeah, we'll see what happens there. You had the other Monday night game, Buffalo Bills, Jacksonville Jaguars. Wasn't even close. Wasn't even a game. Josh Allen, to me, right now, is the MVP of the league. He looks like the best player in the MVP in the NFL right now. I'll even go this far. The Buffalo Bills looks like the best team in the NFL right now. It is interesting because when Stephon Diggs left, we thought that the Bills offense would take a step back. They lost Stephon Diggs and they lost Gabe Davis. They lost both of their receivers. So we thought they would take a step back, but I can say that this offensive coordinator, Joe Brady, has done a great job of balancing the offense where Josh Allen does not have to do everything. And now it seems like for the first 3 games this year, he has Bennett, he's accounted for 4 touchdowns a game, and he's not turning the ball over. And if Josh Allen is not turning the ball over, and he's able to do Josh Allen things, good luck stopping that offense. No, good luck. I mean, it's going to be impossible to stop that offense, and they put a complete beat down on Jacksonville, which is a whole nother story. I don't know what is going on with Trevor Lawrence. It's going to be interesting. What people start to say. I think Trevor Lawrence kind of gets a pass because he's in Jacksonville, and Jacksonville is not one of those huge cities where you hear a lot of people talking about their football team. So it may take them a little while before they start to talk about the Trevor Lawrence contract, things of that nature. But there is nothing that looks good about Jacksonville right now, and we know their coach is good. We know Doug Peterson's a good coach, so um, let's see what happens there. They got Houston coming up. They're getting ready to go into divisional play. So we'll see what happens. Maybe that'll settle them in, and they can get some wins. But Jacksonville does not look like a good team right now. The Sunday night game, you had the Falcons and you had the Chiefs. Once again, I think the Chiefs had some calls go their way. I'm not gonna say they won because of a call, no, but they had some calls go that way. I think that pass interference in the end zone should have been called. That's not necessarily to say that the Falcons would have scored a touchdown, but it would have put them on a 1 yard line and put them in a position to score a touchdown. But you would have gave the ball back to Patrick Mahomes. Who knows what would have happened there? We've seen them work magic. But the Chiefs, of course, are undefeated. And Atlanta just did what they've been known to do throughout their years. Although they won a close game against Philly, the previous week, they tend to just lose those close games that they should not lose. But no, I think Atlanta's going to be decent. I think the Chiefs are going to be there as well. Then you get to your Sunday night, your Sunday games. Of course, you had the Cowboys and the Ravens. We'll talk about that game because I actually got a chance to attend that game in person. So we'll talk a little bit about that game here in just a second. Let's talk about the Dolphins. Let's talk about the Dolphins in Seattle. Didn't get a chance to watch it because I was in Dallas for the game, but just paying attention to it as we go. And yeah, the Dolphins don't look good at all. The Dolphins have not looked good this year whatsoever, and they are really treading a thin line of probably being one of the worst teams in the NFL if they don't get it together. With all of that talent, with all of that speed, excuse me, they're probably trending on being one of the teams that may be the worst teams in the NFL this year, especially if they can't get Tua back. And that sounds crazy. That I'm saying that if they don't get Tua back, they could be one of the worst teams in the NFL. But here's why I say that. And I was having this conversation with my brothers, with my father the other day. I think Tua being out right now is good for Tua, but it's really bad for Mike McDaniel. And here's why I say that. Everyone always says anybody could play quarterback with all of that talent. That's what they say. Anybody can play quarterback with talent. He got Tyreek Hill. He got Jalen Water. No, that doesn't seem to be true. Because we've seen Tua go out, and when Tua goes out, that offense really just stops. Now we know that there's been some teams that's been able to slow the offense down, with Tua there. We get that. No, we get that. No, especially last year. Everybody brings up last year all the time, about how when they played winning teams that were really good, things of that nature, they were able to neutralize that offense. Teams like the 49ers and the Ravens and the Bills did it twice, things of that nature. We know that. But for the most part, when Tua is in there, they probably have a top 5 offense. But when he's gone, they probably have a bottom 5 offense. And that's interesting to me. No, and here's why. We've seen teams lose their quarterback and still be able to function. We see Minnesota doing it right now. We've seen the 49ers do it for years with Kyle Shanahan. We saw Cincinnati do it last year with Joey Browner, or Jake Browner, I think his name was. We saw Cleveland do it when they lost their quarterback. I mean, we've seen teams come in and bring quarterback. We saw Josh Dobbs go to like 3 or 4 different teams and still be able to win games. So we've seen backup quarterbacks come in and still be able to score points, push the offense forward, and that's with less talent than what the Dolphins have. That's without a Tyreek Hill and a Jalen Waddle and a Devon Achane and Raheem. So it's interesting because when Tua goes out, the team doesn't really seem to be able to do anything offensively. So I was like, man, is Mike McDaniel Nathaniel Hackett? And the reason I said Nathaniel Hackett was because when he has Aaron Rodgers, that offense seems to really flow. That offense looks really good. And he almost looks like an offensive genius. But then when Aaron Rodgers goes down or he does not have Aaron Rodgers, the offense does not seem to click. And that was just the first name that came to mind. To be honest, I'm sure there are other coordinators like that, but that was just the first name that came to mind. Because without Tua, Mike McDaniel's offense doesn't seem to click. So I'm like, man, does that mean that he has based his offensive scheme strictly or directly around one player's talent, one player's gifts, and he's not able to to navigate, or he's not able to adjust any of that when he gets another talent in there? Because they were showing some of the replays and things like that, and you saw circumstances or situations where Tua will probably be able to make those throws with his quick release, his quick eyes, things like that. But Skylar Thompson is not that. So don't you have to design an offense that works towards his skills? And isn't that what makes you an offensive genius when you're able to do that? When you're able to say, okay, this player's gone, this player's in, different skill set. Let me go ahead and design plays that work more towards his skill set and see if we can get this going. But the Dolphins don't seem to be able to do that. Mike McDaniel does not seem to be able to do that. So what happens? 3 and out. Defense is back on the field. They get a stop. Offense go back out. 3 and out. Defense on the field. They get a stop. Offense comes 3 and out. And now you're starting to see the fatigue, and you're starting to see the touchdowns come and the long drives and things of that nature. And that's how you get a 24-3 score in Seattle. So um, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they handle that, because that's going to have to change. Or yeah, they're going to be probably one of the worst teams in the NFL. So especially with Cincinnati winning with a backup quarterback, coming in and being able to win the game the way they want it. That's going to be interesting to see how they fix that. I know they brought in Tyler Huntley. We'll see what happens for the Monday night game against Tennessee. I'm sure they appreciate that extra day where they can try to get him spun up. I think Skylar Thompson is a little banged up. So who knows? Tyler Huntley may be starting Monday night against the Tennessee Titans. It's possible. Who knows? And it's going to be interesting to see if he's able to design plays that work more so towards his skill set and not have that individual try to do what Tua is good at. Now, speaking of Tua, I've been back for I am a Tua fan. I think he is a great kid. I think he's a decent quarterback. Like I said before, he's not a top 10 quarterback. I don't put him in the top 10, but like I was telling my brother, I put him somewhere between 10 and 15. You know what I mean? Or 11 and 15. Put it that way. Somewhere between there. If you said 13, 12, 13, okay. You know what I mean? That's why I think he kind of fits right there with the Jared Goffs, things of that nature. But I don't know if this is the career path that he needs to continue to take. And of course, we talk about that. And no, it's been it's been some time. It's been a few weeks since this concussion protocol, and my thoughts haven't changed. I kind of still don't want to see him on the field playing football again. And the one thing that I can't get past, and I know individuals are saying, hey, there's been a lot of other players that's had more concussions than him. We remember Troy Aikman having to have his face mask cut off and things like that. And we remember Steve Young's concussions and things like that. And I get all of that. But those guys were getting blown up. Tua just kind of ran into Damar Hamlin. He just kind of ran into him. And that concussed him. And I can't get past that. That's the part that's kind of got me like, man, maybe this is just not for him, because I can't imagine him going through a football season and not ever getting hit. Now, of course, last year he was able to get through the season without concussion issues, things like that. He put on a lot of weight. And you can tell he was not mobile at all. He was throwing the ball away, throwing it into the ground, whatever the case may be. You saw that, and it really made their offense limited to a degree. It made him limited. So I understand him wanted to lose weight, wanted to be a little bit more mobile, a little bit more agile, be able to do this, get out of the pocket a little bit more. I completely understand that, because I do think that you have to do that and be that if you want to be a successful offense in the NFL. If you want to be a good quarterback in the NFL, you have to be able to move around a little bit. Even those stationary quarterbacks back in the day, like Ben Roethlisberger, who wasn't known for his mobility, but he was like a bear back there. You couldn't bring him down. So he was kind of like, yeah, throwing people off of him, as they would try to tackle him. Tua's not that either. So he has to have a little bit of mobility, especially being a small guy like that, if he wants that offense to take that next level. So I understand that. I just don't know how conducive that is to his health, if that's going to help him, when it comes to his health. And if that's not going to help him with his health, then maybe, he shouldn't play. Now, he's 26 years old. And I don't think nobody is going to be able to just tell him not to play and he'll say, okay. They're going to have to show him why he should not play. They're going to have to come with some tangible information as to why he shouldn't be playing football. And I just don't know if they're going to be able to do that. Do I think that he will eventually come back and play this year? Yes, I do. Do I want to see it? I don't think I do. No, I don't think I do. No, but we'll see what happens. I do think the Dolphins need to get some things together if they want to salvage the season, though, and go from there. So, some more games just to go through them. You had the Jets put a pretty good beating on the Patriots, on that Thursday night game. Some surprise games. You had a couple of surprise games. You had the Broncos put a good beating on the Buccaneers. No one saw that coming. At least I didn't. You saw Cleveland lose to the Giants. I didn't see that coming either. So, and of course, like I was saying before, the Raiders. Don't know what happened with them against Carolina. Carolina put up 36 points. Andy Dalton threw for 300 yards for 3 touchdowns. I don't know, football. No, who knows what's going on there. You had the Rams come back and beat the 49ers. Don't know how that happened. Detroit beat Arizona. I think Arizona's going to be sneaky good too. By the way, you had Green Bay beat Tennessee. Green Bay, and that's another team that's using a backup quarterback, just by the way. Green Bay is using a backup quarterback. Jordan Love signs a huge contract. He gets hurt in week 1, and that game against Philly is the only game they've lost. They've lost. I mean, they've won every other game since. You had the Steelers. They're still undefeated. Don't understand how. The Saints lose a close one to Philly. In the game they should have lost, in my opinion. And Minnesota, I put Minnesota up there with Buffalo. They look like the best team in the NFC. I think Buffalo is the best team in the AFC and probably the NFL. But I think Minnesota is probably the best team in the NFC. So some good games coming up this next week that we'll be looking out for. And we'll go from there. So let's talk about this Cowboys Ravens game. We actually got a chance to go to Dallas. We got a chance to go to AT&T, which is in Arlington, and actually attend this game in person. Of course, Erica's a huge Lamar Jackson fan. So we went flew up to Arlington and got a chance to go to AT&T. It's a beautiful stadium. No, beautiful stadium. Really enjoyed it. But talk a little bit about the game. Dallas looks soft. No, and I just say it that way. Dallas looks soft. They look like they can be pushed around. Because that's exactly what the Ravens did for the first 3 and a half quarters. That's pretty much what they did. They pushed them around. They had their way with them. You can tell that Baltimore was the more physical team. They looked like the more prepared team, and they showed why they are one of the best teams, or are projected to be one of the best teams in the AFC. They look dominant in their run game, and they look dominant on defense. No, Dallas couldn't get much going on the offensive side. They seem to have a pretty good hold on Dak and the passing game, and of course Dallas doesn't have a running game. They don't have a running game, and it's kind of sad because that means that they're going to put everything on Dak Prescott, and then when it doesn't work, they're going to blame Dak Prescott. One of the things that I recognize, and I had to realize when I got there, is those Dallas folks don't like Dak. They don't like Dak Prescott. They don't like him. They don't think he's good. And me being an outsider and hearing that, after hearing all the noise that I hear from Tua and the things that people say about him, I was like, okay, well, that got a lot worse than that because they do not think that he is a good quarterback at all. One individual who's a fan told me that they would rather have Cooper Rush at quarterback than Dak Prescott. Like, please trade Dak and just let Cooper be the quarterback. Cooper Rush and trade. And I was like, wow, that's crazy. Um, so yes, Baltimore pretty much dominated the majority of the game. And then they did what Baltimore did. The last 6 minutes of the game is almost as if they shut it down. It's almost as if they're running the race, they're running the 400, and they've been winning the race the entire time. And they get to the last 100, and their runner starts to just kind of just cruise control because they feel like they're so far ahead. So, all right, we got this one, so we can just cruise. And they don't realize that everybody else is pumping as hard as they can. you know. And then they get 10 yards away, and then they look back and they're like, oh, I got to get it going again. And we've seen individuals lose that race that way. We've seen that happen. And Baltimore seems to do something like that every single week. And I don't understand why. My brother asked me, who's a Raiders, he said, do I think it's coaching? And I'm like, I really don't know. Because we know John Harbaugh is a good coach. We know that. We've seen him win Super Bowls. We know he's a good coach. So I honestly do not know what it is in the last 6 minutes that they're just cruising, and you see them trying to get it cranked back up in the last seconds. And sometimes they do it, sometimes they don't. In this particular game, they were able to hold on. They were able to hold on. But think about what you had go on in those last couple of minutes. You had a botched onside kick that Dallas was able to recover. You had two or three 3-and-outs. Some of them were where they were throwing passes, and it was like, why are you throwing passes on 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3? You got Derrick Henry in the backfield. You got Lamar Jackson at quarterback. What's going on here? Maybe that is coaching, now that I think about it. And yeah, it just makes no sense to me. It just makes no sense to me. But nevertheless, they were able to pull the game out. Lamar Jackson was able to seal the win with a 9-10 yard run to pick up a first down, to keep the ball in Baltimore's hand and not give Dallas a chance to tie it up with the field goal. You hear Lamar Jackson talk about it afterwards. He's kind of disappointed, saying we need to stay on the gas. We need to continue to keep putting points up, things of that nature. Maybe they should listen to him. Because there's something going on there. It could be a head thing. It could be just something in their head. But Dallas came up a little bit short. A lot of injuries in that game. Michael Parsons was hurt. DeMarcus Lawrence was hurt. So we'll see what happens, because I think if you take them out, that defense is really not any good anymore. And I don't really know how good the defense is now, to be honest, besides them, Trayvon Diggs. Where's Deron Bland? I haven't seen him yet this year. There doesn't seem to be much more on the defense side of the ball for the Cowboys. So we'll see what happens there. We'll see what happens with them. I think if the Cowboys lose the Thursday night game against the Giants, that's going to be problematic for Mike McCarthy. So we'll see what happens there. We know we got coaches out there in waiting. I'm sure Bill Belichick would love to go to a team like Dallas that's already made. I don't know what Pete Carroll's doing right now either, but we'll see. But yeah, no, we'll see what happens with the Cowboys because they're not looking really good right now. That division doesn't look the best right now. It's funny because no, when you look at the game from this last week, Washington actually looks like the better team than the Giants, the Eagles, and the Cowboys. Washington actually looked like the team that's probably the best right now because the Eagles and Jalen Hurts, they didn't look particularly well either going up against the Saints. Although they won, they do have a 2-1 record. I don't think they played well either, but we'll see what happens with them as well. If Jalen Hurts can stop turning the ball over, I don't know what's going on with Jalen Hurts. I heard somebody say that we've probably seen the best of Jalen Hurts, but we'll see. We'll see. So, that was this week. No, in NFL football. Last thing that I want to talk about today is my trip to Dallas. We had the opportunity to go to Dallas and just enjoy ourselves, get away. I think it's very important that you do that in life. I think it's important that you give yourself the time and the space to step away and just breathe a little bit. It can be therapeutic. I understand that we all have families, we have jobs, we have things that we know that we have to be responsible for, but every now and then it's good to kind of just take a break from everything just so you can get your bearings and get your mind right. Continue to do what it is that you're doing. So that's what we were able to do over the weekend. We got a chance to go to Dallas and just hang out. Believe it or not, some of the best parts of that trip was being able to do absolutely nothing. Because we've been doing so much throughout the year. So just being able to do absolutely nothing was probably the best parts of that trip. The Humphreys, no, we were able to go with Bobby and Barbara Humphrey, who is the parents of Marlon Humphrey. I hope they don't mind me saying this on here, but we were able to go hang out with them, and they really showed us a good time. We got a chance to go to the back and meet some of the players afterwards. We got a chance to see Marlon after the game and get his perspective on how he thought the game with. Got a chance to see a couple of players. Saw Isaiah Likely back there. I saw Zay Flowers back there. A couple of it's so interesting because when you're dealing with guys with football, you don't really know what they look like all the time because they have helmets on. Now, you know they're football players because of their build, but when it's like, well, who's that? Who's that? Who's that? But we got a chance to see some of the guys as they came out of the back. We didn't get a chance to see Lamar Jackson. We didn't get a chance to see Derrick Henry, of course. That was one of the big reasons why I wanted to take my wife because she's a huge Lamar Jackson fan. She wanted the opportunity to see him, maybe get a picture with him. She had a Lamar Jackson shirt on. So I did feel like somewhat of a failure on that side because I didn't get an opportunity to get her that. Even if I was gonna just sneak a picture with Lamar Jackson while he was just standing over in the corner, that would have been cool. But that just means that we have to take her to another game so we can make that happen. But all in all, wonderful trip. Wonderful trip. Great food. And we got a chance to rest. No, we got a chance to rest because there is a lot of things going on in life, just like there is in pretty much everyone else's life as well. So we all have things that we're dealing with. We all have things that we're responsible for. So I will say, don't ever forget to take time out to rejuvenate yourself. It's very important that you do that. The work will be here when you get back. No, but please take the time to rejuvenate yourself, to give yourself some smiles. No, just give yourself some smiles. No, that way you recognize or you continue to understand why you work so hard. We don't ever want to get to the place where all we do is work, 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 that we forget why we're working. No, so please remember that. Um, I am very thankful for the means to be able to do the things that we were able to do. And once again, like I was saying, very thankful that we were able to take this trip with the Humphreys and have them show us a really good time. And just spend time with them. Great individuals, great people. We'll talk about that later. So um, that's all I got for today. We're gonna go ahead. We're gonna end it up. We're gonna end it today. So we'll do this again next week. Try to do this about once a week. With just give you all some thoughts. Just give you all some perspectives. So we'll do it again next week. Um, no, like, subscribe. No, and please throw some things in the comments. So know what you would want to hear me talk about. Some of the things that you want to hear me discuss. So with that, thank you all so much. Peace and love. And I'll see you all the next time we do this. Take care. Later.